Here to go through the motivation notes with you. I'm only going to do section 1, and I'm going to do it slow enough so that you can write and go through with me. So all of motivation is, you got 4 modules total, 33, 34, 35, and 36. I got your page numbers right there for you. Doesn't want me to move it. Okay. And here are your sections. So I'm just doing section 1 today, basic motivation, but there's also going to be hunger, sex, and then affiliation and achievement. Those are all major things that motivate humans. So the first one is basic motivation. Pause this right now, go watch the crash course video, and then you can come back and jump in. All right, so motivation. So first thing you're going to start with is just your definition of motivation. So motivation is a need or desire. So motivation, a need or desire that energizes and directs behavior. So that energizes and directs behavior. So basically it's what makes us do things. Okay, pretty much. Yeah, I gotta move that. All right, so it arises from both nature and nurture. So everything we've talked about this year has been nature versus nurture, right? Like nature's inside of you, your body, nurture's outside of you, your environment. Motivation's the same way because you have these bodily pushes that make you want to do things, like feelings inside of you of like hunger and stuff like that. You can go to your room if I'm bothering you. Sorry. Messing up some iPad time by talking to you guys. And then nurture, which is everything around you. So like with eating, I said you may be motivated to eat because of nature, because your body, what's happening inside of you, and you're hungry, so you want to eat. But also there's nurture, like there's just certain times of the day you think you're supposed to eat. You know, we're at school and the bell rings and bam, that's your time to eat. And if you don't eat right now, you don't eat lunch. Being at a restaurant, being around your friends, being offered something you enjoy, all those are your environment. And you might not have ate if it wasn't for the bell ringing, or for sitting down at a restaurant at this time, or for being around your friends who are offering you a bag of chips or something like that. So it could also be environmental with things. So we first started studying motivation with like Charles Darwin in the early 1900s, when he, was making a lot of ground and becoming, popular with his evolutionary beliefs and stuff like that. It's kind of where evolutionary psychology that we'll hit on a little bit in this unit comes from. Many people started describing it the same way that he did with the word instincts, basically. They started talking about, we have these instincts. Well, what they came to find out is they were just describing them as instincts. They weren't like explaining them or saying like where they come from or how they work or anything like that. So it wasn't quite right, and you'll see why. But do write down instinct. You'll need to know that. So instinct is a complex behavior that is rigidly patterned throughout a species and is unlearned. Things like we've already talked about in the developmental unit, like you think about how birds would imprint to the first thing they saw. Babies have little reflexes where they grasp or turn their head or stuff like that. They came to find out you can't totally call them instincts because, yeah, there's the hunger instinct that's unlearned. Your stomach growls, you want to eat, you figure out how to eat, that type thing. But then, like I said, there's also such a nurture component. There's such an environmental component. There's plenty of times we eat when there was nothing instinctual about it, that you can't say that hunger is like totally an instinct, if that makes sense. So they're going to kind of disregard looking at instincts like with Darwin and stuff and move to the first type of theory with motivation, which is called the drive reduction theory. So I got a video on it that you can go watch if like me explaining it doesn't totally make sense, but we'll write down the definition of that too. All right, so drive reduction theory. All right, so this is the idea that a physiological, remember that physiological is like physical, it's not mind, psychological, it's more body. That a physiological need creates an aroused tension state and then in parentheses, that aroused tension state is your drive for the drive reduction theory. You put drive in parentheses. That motivates That should say an organism, not and. That motivates, because it's not just humans, that's why we write this. An organism to satisfy a need. Or satisfy the need. That should be an, A-N, not A-N-D. So the drive reduction theory is the idea that you have this physical thing going on inside you, this physical need, right? And so it creates this like aroused state. You're going to hear the word aroused a lot in the motivation unit, and basically it just means like alert. Like if you're aroused, you're like, you know, awake, focused, paying attention, alert. You can't like ignore it, you know, that type of thing. So it's going to make this aroused tension, which is this drive, and this drive is going to motivate you to fill that need. So you know, like basically a physiological thing happens inside of you, like with your blood glucose, whatever, and you know, it drops and you're hungry. And that's going to make an aroused tension state, a drive inside of your head. And that's going to motivate you. You can have some. That's going to motivate you to satisfy the need. That's going to motivate you to go eat and stuff like that. Like if you feel hungry physiologically, you're going to have this drive and you're then going to go eat and stuff like that to solve it. You're good. Go eat. All right, so the aim of the drive reduction theory is homeostasis. So homeostasis is when you're balanced, right? So let me say all that drive stuff again, because I was looking at kids and I don't know if I said it right. So you have a physiological thing going on inside of you physically. So like something happens, you haven't eaten a long period of time. So like your glucose, your blood sugar levels dropping, and that triggers something in your brain to feel this feel of hunger, stuff like that. That's what's physiologically going on around you. Those feelings, all that going on inside of you is going to make you aroused. Like, oh, I'm hungry. Okay. And you're focused on that and you can't focus on anything else. That's your drive, your hunger drive. It's going to motivate you to go satisfy that need. You're going to be very motivated if you're hungry to go find food. And the hungrier you are, the more motivated you are to find food. Like you're somewhat hungry, you're like, okay. But you know, like when you're starving, you'll just take like anything, you just got to go find it like that. So that's what drive reduction theory says. And that's why obviously most people agree with this theory, because that sounds very true, right? So the main goal is homeostasis. So you don't want to be like hungry, because then you're aroused and you're like, you can't focus on like your schoolwork or the test or whatever, right? But you don't want to be stuffed either. And we've all felt that, where we eat too much and then you're stuffed and like you're tired, you're lethargic, you can't think, you don't want to get up, you don't want to move, you're like zoned out. Either way is not good. Like you're too aroused or you're not aroused enough. So it wants homeostasis. It wants you to eat just the right amount of food to where you're no longer focused on the hungry and no longer crazy aroused by that. And you're not like too stuffed to where you're like checked out either. You're just like perfectly balanced. You ate the right amount of food. You're feeling the right amount. You're engaged. You're aroused the right amount, like that type of thing. So let's write down the definition of homeostasis. Homeostasis. I don't know. Quit working. You can just go watch videos. I was like, can mom have just a couple minutes to film this? That's what happens if I do it early in the morning and not late at night when they're gone or asleep or something or outside playing. All right, so let's write down homeostasis. Sorry about that. So a tendency to maintain a balanced or constant internal state. So internally, like you want to be balanced. Like you don't want to be too hungry. Like I said, you don't want to be too stuffed. But as you know, like life doesn't perfectly go like that. So it's like you feel good and then you get hungry and then you eat. And then you get hungry and then you eat. And then you eat too much and then it wears off. Sorry. I'll watch that for a little bit. All right. So hopefully you're going to remember how to tell you guys this. Okay, so homeostasis, it wants you to stay even, right? So it doesn't want you to be too hungry and too aroused or be too full and too not. And so, like I said, it's a constant struggle because life would be perfect if we all just stayed at homeostasis. But you eat and you're good for a while and then you get hungry, right? And then it comes back and then you get hungry and then it comes back. Or like I said, you eat too much and then it wears off over time and then you get to homeostasis. So it's like your body and you trying to like, it goes along with sleep. It goes along with, and we'll talk about other types of motivating factors, from sex to like achievement to belonging, like having people like you. Like everything in life is kind of ebb and flow, and you don't want too much and you don't want too little. You want just right, like Goldilocks, and that's homeostasis. I think we needed to keep writing the definition. I'm so sorry. Okay, so The regulation, if we're going to keep writing it, there was a semicolon, and then we have the regulation. And if we already wrote this and I forgot, just listen to me do it again. Of any aspect of body chemistry. So this is the regulation of any aspect of body chemistry. That's what we're talking about, like hunger, thirst, sleep, all that kind of stuff. Such as blood glucose. That's the hunger one I was just telling you about. Such as blood glucose. That's like your blood sugar. It's what triggers hunger. Around a particular level. So want your blood glucose to stay around a particular level, not be too much, not be too little, which makes you not feel good. If it stays around this particular level, you feel the best and you're motivated the best. You can focus the best and all that. So we are not just pushed by our internal needs to reduce drives, we're pulled by incentives. So again, an incentive like with the hunger thing, you're pushed when you're hungry internally, so you go get something to eat. But like I said, sometimes you're not like super hungry or something, or you haven't maybe even noticed you were hungry, but you go out to eat with your friends or something, and that's an incentive. Like being around your friends is an incentive. Really good food at your favorite restaurant and how great it tastes, that's an incentive. You know what I'm saying? Like, so sometimes incentives pull us, and we go because we want to be around our friends. We want something to do. We go because we want to taste like the best, our favorite food or pizza or whatever. So an incentive is something from the environment that can pull us to and get us, and it can motivate you to do stuff. I mean, money is a huge incentive. A lot of people get up and go to work. Well, not right now, but too soon. A lot of people get up and go to work and they don't love what they do, but they like money, and that's their incentive. So that's why they wake up and go and do their job every day. I hope that never happens to any of you guys, because that would be a terrible way to live, I always feel like. But some people have certain incentives that motivate them more than others, right? Like some people are motivated by people liking them more, and then some people care less if people like them or not. It's just, kind of varies from person to person. So let's write down what an incentive is. Incentives or incentive. All right, so it is a positive or negative environmental stimulus that motivates behavior. And sometimes, like you said, we learned about in the learning chapter, there you like avoid stuff. That's an incentive too. Like you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to lose money. You don't want to whatever. And so that could be a negative, thing that you're trying to avoid or something. So it's usually we think of incentives as positive, but there's also negative things we're trying to avoid. When we're talking about like positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, those are incentives basically that we're talking about there. So again, we said like money is a big one. So like it says, an environmental stimulus. So something outside of your body in this environment. And for us, that could be money. That could be, like I said, friendship. That could be like the pizza sitting on the table right in front of you. And it motivates your behavior. Is your behavior going to be to eat it? Is your behavior going to be to go to work to make your money? That type of thing. When there's a need and there's an incentive together, we are usually strongly driven. So like when you're hungry and it's your favorite pizza, you're really driven to eat it. And you might even eat more, stuff like that. Whereas if you're hungry, you'll eat. If it's your favorite pizza, but you're not really hungry, you'll eat. So it's like if you get one or the other, you'll eat. But if you get them both together, like that really, really motivates. You're hungry, you're starving, and it's your favorite thing ever. It doesn't aim to eliminate arousal, because then you would just be like totally out of it, lethargic, checked out. Like that's not the goal. But it wants to optimize it. So optimize is a fancy word for like optimal, like the best. And so again, you don't want to be like super aroused, like all I can think about is how hungry I am. I can't focus on this test. You don't want to be like super full where you're like, I can't focus on this test. I can't think. I feel miserable. You want to be like in the middle. So you're not too full. You're not too hungry. You're in the middle. And then your arousal's optimized in the middle, which is like the best level of motivation and stuff. So with all of our biological needs satisfied, we're then driven to experience stimulation or new information. Write down this thing from the last one about how some of this is some fluff stuff I haven't wrote down, but some you do need to know. So I want you to write down about how it doesn't want to eliminate arousal, it wants to optimize it. Here we go. Not to eliminate arousal, but optimize it. And if you want to put in your notes kind of what I've been saying, like not too much, not too little. So like if you want to write this, I'll kind of write it with you. If you're hungry, you're like highly aroused. And I mean aroused as in like what's going on in your head and thinking because you're like hungry, hungry, food, food, food. When can I eat next? When can I eat next? Like you're always moving and stuff. And then like if you were like too full, you are too low. You have like too low of a level of arousal where you're just like, huh? What? And you have to like, check back in and stuff like that. So I want you to kind of know the difference and that you want to be in the middle where the sweet spot is. So with all of our biological needs satisfied, we're then driven to experience stimulation or new information. So let's say you're not hungry. And let's say you know that if you get hungry, you can walk 7 steps to the pantry and get something to eat, and then you'll feel fine. So we're not like, in any type of culture where we worry about our next meal or starvation or anything like that. If that's the case, then you can start moving on to a different need. It's like you start with the most basic primal ones that keep you alive, because obviously that's what your brain focuses on the most. Because if you've ever like been deprived of something that'll keep you alive, like food, your brain can't move on. But like once you know that you're good there, your brain can move on to other stuff. And so your book talks about like, we're motivated by curiosity to figure out new things, to learn new things and stuff like that. I thought this was so funny. I was doing it last night and it was like really late. And it was like, if we lack stimulation, we are bored and look to increase our arousal. And I was like, oh my God, is that not all of our lives right now? Like, if you're like me, I was like, man, this will be great. Just a little break. I was not thinking a break for like the rest of my life or anything like that. Just, a couple weeks, like, catch our breath. And, I'll get some stuff done. I'll be lazy a little bit. I'll work with you guys. I'll work with my kids, but, I'll sleep in or something a little bit. Like I'm thinking of all these great things. If you're like me, after the first week or two, you're like, all right, like that was good. I'm good. I'm ready to like go back. And now it's almost at the point to where it's like the day creeps by or you're just like so bored. You're like, I need to do something new today. But if you're like me, you don't have motivation to do something new or you're covered up with all your schoolwork. And it's like that's all you have time to focus on. So you can't focus on anything new. And when you don't focus on anything new, you're just like, right? So probably some of us right now are really lacking some stimulation going on. You have your phones, you have your brothers, sisters, parents, you have your schoolwork, maybe even a job, but not the amount of stimulation you used to have. You know what I'm saying? Like you can watch anything on TV or your phone, but it's not the same as like interacting with real people. And really walking around really different places, and you might go here or there. You might not be totally trapped inside your house, but you're not going to the amount of places, hopefully, that you were in the amount of spaces and stuff and seeing the amount of things and differences that you were. So all that was like stimulation, like walking around the school building, talking to people, interacting with people, seeing all the stuff, learning all the information. Like that was all so much stimulation. And we went from like all that to this, which is nice for a break every now and then because you don't want to be highly aroused like all the time. But like I said, after a while, it's like, all right, I don't want to be down here all the time either. Remember, we want that like optimum level and stuff. So we start looking to increase our arousal on other levels. So too much stimulation, too much arousal, that can be bad. Like and you remember those days of school before we got out where it was like too much, right? And maybe some of you guys are feeling that right now. I sincerely hope not. And if it's because of me, please reach out and tell me because I don't ever want to be the person that does that. Good job. Thank you. Love you. I'm proud of you. Did you guys hear that? I feel like I should tell you. I told them to leave me alone. That's my littlest one, Smith. And she was very proud to tell me that she went to the potty and pooped and wiped herself all by herself. And I should be proud because she's 3 and normally unable to do that. So anyway, sorry about this. Maybe this is making a fun video. Maybe this is making it interesting. Maybe this is some stimulation for you guys, keeping you aroused. I don't know. I feel like it's making me go. But anyways, so I hope nobody's getting too much of that while we're home with like schoolwork, that they're getting bombarded and stressed and overwhelmed. And so please reach out to me or whatever teacher and let them know. Hopefully maybe we're kind of more in the like lower ends. So like I said, you just want to be balanced. You don't want too little because you're bored. You don't want too much because you're stressed. And that was something right there you can write down too, because that was what I was talking about earlier, where I want you to write about like the negative effects of too much, the negative effects of too little, and how you see the bottom line says we want like Goldilocks, like the perfect amount right in the middle. All right, so then the next thing is this thing called the Yerkes. I never know how to say it right. Yerkes, I think. Yerkes-Dodson law. Okay, so if you took honors psych, we did not talk about this. We didn't go that in depth. So we'll talk about it here. It's actually kind of like you could guess it pretty easy once I tell you about what it means. But it's just interesting that they did it and studied. So the Yerkes-Dodson law. It is the principle that, so we'll write this definition, the principle that performance, so this is you doing anything, your performance on anything, a test, running a race, anything. Performance increases with arousal only up to a point. Because again, remember we talked about you can get too much and then it like negatively impacts you. Only up to a point, beyond which that point it would decrease, beyond which performance decreases. Because like I said, it can be overwhelming or stressful or stuff like that. So if you're taking like the AP exam, okay, they want you to be aroused enough that you're focused, you're paying attention, like you get it, the seriousness of it, and you're doing everything right. They don't want you too aroused to where you're like freaking out, giving yourself anxiety, your stomach hurts, your head's racing, you can't focus, time's passing, you're just like this test, you know, and you're like, oh crap, I'm ready. They don't want you too aroused, right? But then let's say you're doing something like super mundane, easy, boring, I don't know, like you're just tapping a pencil. And say this is a job, whoops, I just do it, that you have to do. They want you aroused more so that you, so like in the test, it was kind of like aroused, but maybe on the lower end, so you don't go crazy because it's a big, hard assignment. Let's say we're doing an easy assignment. They actually want more arousal because if you have less, you'll kind of zone out, forget about it, won't do a good job. So like with an easier task, they want you to be more aroused. So maybe like singing your song, talking to your friends, and you're doing this, and you're like more engaged, more aroused. And so it's basically saying like arousal is good up until a point, but you can have too much of it. And so they really say you should break it down by task, which is what I got here. So if it's a difficult task, so here's the performance level, aka the amount of arousal. So like if it's a difficult task, scratch that, I can't read a graph. Okay, here's your level of arousal down at the bottom. Here's your performance. So if it's a difficult task, you can see it's over here with the low arousal because, like I said, taking a test, they want you to have a lower level of arousal so that you stay calm, so that you don't get overwhelmed or stressed or psych yourself out or stuff like that. And then and you can see like if you have a low level of arousal, you do better, you have a high performance on the test. But as the arousal increases, let's say you had a high arousal, look where your performance is on the test. Your performance is low. If you're highly aroused, it's going to negatively impact you. You're probably not going to do as good on the test because you're so aroused with all these other things that you can't do the test well. You know what I'm saying? So that's the blue line. Say it's something easy, like I said, banging a pencil. If you only have a low level of arousal, you're sitting alone in a room, not listening to music, not talking to anyone, then you're probably low at it. Your performance probably bad. You probably are drifting off, falling asleep, or forgetting, or getting off beat, or whatever. Whereas if you have a high level of arousal, you see highs down here, look how much your performance goes up. And so it's kind of like multitasking. So something easy, and you're talking, and you're doing this, and you're thinking about that, and you're telling that person that, oh yeah, and then you focus. Does that make sense? So you want a higher level of arousal with an easier task, and you want a lower level of arousal with a harder task. Do write these down. If you don't want to put like the parentheses part, that's fine, but I want you to kind of understand what I said. So like easy task, you want high arousal. And like I said, it's to help you focus and stuff. Difficult task or hard task, low arousal. So not stressed out, not overwhelmed, that type thing. But all the needs that we've been talking about aren't the same. Like hunger is way more important than like, achievement. Like it's great to achieve and feel good about yourself and have other people recognize that, but like that's not going to kill you. But literally if you don't eat, that could kill you. You know what I'm saying? So like you can't even rank them all the same. And so Abraham Maslow, who we've talked about, he's one of the main guys with humanism. So we talked about him in the last part of this unit with the personality slides. For the humanistic approach to personality, and we talked about them with therapy, with the humanistic approach to therapy for psychological disorders. But Abraham Maslow is kind of your main humanist, and he proposed there was this hierarchy of needs that reflects that food and water is greater than feeling good about yourself. So this is his hierarchy of needs. So let's write this down. All right, hierarchy of needs. Maslow's pyramid of human needs beginning at the base. So it's like a pyramid beginning at the bottom at the base. And that's where you have to start and you work your way up. Beginning at the base with physiological, again, that's your physical stuff inside your body. Physiological. You hear the iPads in the background. They're so loud with counting. That must first be satisfied. So you got to like start at the bottom. You got to satisfy those needs first before you can move up to the next. You got to satisfy that one before you move up to the next. You got to satisfy that one before you can move up to the next. Must be satisfied before higher level, like safety and stuff like that. Safety needs. And then you move into your psychological needs, like the having people like you and liking yourself and stuff like that. Needs become active. So the physiological ones at the base must first be satisfied. You move up to safety, and then like belonging, esteem, self-actualization, all those. So here is his pyramid. Don't write while I'm talking to you. Either pause and write it or listen to me talk and then pause and write it however you want, but you need to put this in your notes. Now, if you have taken honors psych, or if you've studied Maslow in a different class, parenting, child development, something like that, you may realize that this pyramid has 6 steps instead of 5. So when we were in honors psych, I taught you about the first thing that Maslow came up with, which ended right here at self-actualization. Later, and he proposed this pretty early on in life. It was the biggest claim to fame for Abraham Maslow, by and large. Later in life, he added the 6th one. Some people like it, some people agree with it, some people don't. But since your book has it, I'm going to go with this one. But if you're familiar with this, you might be looking at this 6th one like, what? I thought it ended with self-actualization. I always kind of looked at it ending with self-actualization. But this is just an additional step to self-actualization. So let's talk about all these. And there's videos you can watch explaining it. So you're going to have to satisfy this before you can move here, this before you can move here, 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 and here. So physiological, hunger and thirst. Obviously, you are not going to care about your esteem if people like you. You're not even going to be fulfilling your potential if you are so hungry, so thirsty, which thankfully probably none of us really, or most of us don't live like that, that you are so preoccupied, all your thoughts, all your motivation goes to where's my next meal going to come from. So if someone was like truly homeless on the street, had absolutely no money to their name, that's what they're constantly thinking about. Am I going to get something out of the trash? Am I going to steal something? Is somebody going to give me some money and I can buy something? What can I afford? Like all that kind of stuff. They don't have time for anything else. They're highly aroused, and that arousal is solely focused on staying alive. So he would say once you get into an environment where you know that you're going to stay alive, you know that you can eat, you know that you can drink water, stuff like that, then you can start to focus on the other things. But if you don't have that, you're going to be stuck here. And it's not like stuck here for forever. It's just like at whatever time in life. All right, then you move up to safety needs. So you need to feel that the world is organized, predictable, aka safe, right? And so things that come here like money, okay? And not money as in money that you're rich, but just, think of someone who was literally, very poverty stricken, very much living paycheck to paycheck, very much didn't have enough money to pay for rent and groceries and this and that or something, right? Childcare and blah, blah, blah. They're not going to be moving up. They're not going to be fulfilling their potential. They're not going to be worried about people liking them and all that kind of stuff because all their energy, all their focus is going to be at this level. Like, where am I going to get enough money for this? Or what if I don't get enough money for this? What is it going to be like? So he would say, once you're safe, then you can move up. And so in our society, it would be money. It would be a house. It would be cars. I guess if you lived in a city and used public transportation, it wouldn't be that. But, for most of us, like, you don't have, or no one in your family has a car, like, you're not going to be able to work or go somewhere or do stuff. So that's kind of what safety needs are. And then once you feel like safe and secure, then you can move up, and these top 3 right here are psychological. And I guess it'd really be top 4. So after you do that, then it's love and belongingness. So he would say that you need to be loved and you need to love others. Like it's just such a basic, huge part of being a human. You need to feel like you belong in some type of group, in your family, in your friends, with this group, with that group, sports, a hobby, church, whatever. Like you need to have your niche. Similar to what we were talking about with like Erickson, kind of with the intimacy, isolation, and stuff. Like you're gonna need to have strong relationships, Erickson would say. Kind of what Maslow is saying, like you need to fit in. And so if you honest to God felt like you fit in nowhere, 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 he would say you would kind of be stuck at this until you figure out how to reconcile that and find someone who loves you or figure out how to love other people or stuff like that. He's going to say you're going to kind of be stuck there before you move up. Sorry, my nose is running. Allergy season. So, excuse me. So then you move up to esteem. So esteem, you think of like self-esteem and how you feel about yourself and stuff. Achievement, competence. Remember we talked about competence, fancy word for feeling like good about yourself, solid, smart, like that type of thing. Having independence, and then the need for recognition and respect from others. So this is where a lot of people spend a lot of time. You know, if we live in a kind of more of a perfect world, then your needs are met, you know, physiologically, safety, people love you, you're safe. So if you think of like just the most ideal thing, this is where you kind of have to start taking it on your own, right? So you have to start feeling good about yourself and your achievements and stuff, and you want other people to recognize those achievements. Maybe not all the time, and maybe some people want more recognition than others. And some people prefer to stay in the back. But overall, it's like you want people to realize, like, I'm good at what I do, I'm good at this. Like you can, I'm reliable, I'm dependable, I'm gonna do it, you know, like that kind of stuff, and feel really good about that. Then he says self-actualization, which is what used to be last, where you basically take all that and you figure out your potential, right? So living up to our fullest and our unique potential. Probably one of the reasons why I always say that I'm like a humanist in terms of like, or humanism, you know, is the lens I view psychology a lot, is because of self-actualization. Because that's always like my goal. Like my goal for you guys as students is like, I want you to recognize your potential. We all have totally different gifts. I mean, I was a high school student who loved to talk, and really that was it, and hang out with other people and be fun. And the thought of me like doing a job where I had to sit behind a desk in silence with no one else, like, oh my gosh, that would slowly kill me, right? Kind of what's happening right now in this quarantine. So it was like I realized, you know, with esteem, like that's what I'm good at. That's how, you know, people recognize me and respect me, and that's what makes my relationships and stuff. So it's like, all right, what can I do with that? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, well, teach, right? Make relationships with other people, talk for a living, and talk clearly and explain things and teach, right? So I would say like I self-actualized when I became a teacher. And, you know, some people become a teacher and realize, not for me, and they're out, right? And then some people, I swear, teach and it's not for them. And I don't know why they do it, because surely it's not for the paycheck. But like I started teaching and I realized like this is it. Like this is my calling. You know what I'm saying? Like I can impact lives. I can make a positive impact in people's lives. I in turn enjoy my life because of the positive impacts you guys have with me and the relationships I form with you guys, which is why I'm missing you so much right now. And stuff like that. And I was like, that's how I can be the best Lindsay Parnell that I can be, right? And if I was doing other stuff, I would kind of be wasting my potential, right? I wouldn't be impacting the world as much as I could. People look at this with their jobs, like I said, people look at this with their family, you become a parent. People look at this with like military service, church involvement. There's so many, you know, like the medical field. There's so many different ways that you could do this. And then I always kind of stopped. But if you get to the transcendence, this is basically this is saying you realize your potential. This is like you do it. So it's like step one, step two. Because I guess he thought maybe people were realizing their potential or this, that, and the other, but it was like it didn't have enough like oomph behind it, enough action, enough do. And so you really need to like go out there. So like you figured out your potential. Now find meaning in your life and do something beyond yourself. And so again, I think like the easiest thing for me is thinking about teaching. Like I have found meaning in teaching. You know, that's why I'm still doing it. That's why, you know, I'm sticking at the same place. That's why I don't want to leave Glenn, you know, and stuff like that. I know there's kids everywhere I could go teach, but like I don't want to. I want you guys. And that's like my meaning. That's the identity beyond myself, is like that I'm helping people and that I'm like a teacher and I'm a Glenn Bobcat, and it's bigger than me, basically, is what you need with the self-transcendence. And you think about people right now with the pandemic and the medical world, oh my gosh, this is totally right. Like they have found their meaning and now it's beyond themselves. They're saving people's lives or helping loved ones say goodbye, or they're putting themselves at risk for the greater good of mankind. Like all that kind of stuff. So like absolutely that's what's going on. So I definitely like this last sixth one. And if you're new to this, you're like, I only know the sixth. But if you're not, you're probably like having a hard time, like me, maybe putting this last one on. But I really like it because it's, like I said, it's like the next step, pretty much. So like I said, if you haven't wrote this down, you do kind of need to write everything in it. Sorry. Pause it and do so and then catch back up. All right, so according to Maslow, we start at the bottom, like I said. Once these needs are met, we move up to the next level. We will be stuck at a level until that need is satisfied. Like I said, he originally proposed 5 levels, but later added the 6th. Self-actualization is realize your potential, and the 6th of self-transcendence is to strive for meaning and purpose beyond yourself. So, for example, like I told you some examples, looking at the pyramid, but here's some more. If someone was living in a war-torn area, like in the Middle East, like in Syria, and you're literally worried all day, every day, if a bomb's going to fall and blow up your house or your school, if they're going to come knock on your door and kill you or take your family, if they're going to take your, parents away or kill someone in front of you, you're going to walk down the street and see something happen like that. If you're literally living in that, which thankfully, here in America, you and I cannot even wrap our heads around. Like we can describe it and think we know what it's like, but like we can't. That I can't even imagine. Again, that's all your focus. That's all your aroused state is focused on. That's all you're motivated to do is like get through today, stay safe, figure out what we're going to do tomorrow. Like you're constantly on that. So again, you don't have time to like fulfill your potential and find meaning beyond yourself and get a good self-esteem about yourself and find all these niches in which you belong and stuff like that. Not to say you couldn't do a little bit of the stuff, but like you're not going to like solidly hit those higher ones because you're kind of stuck on the second level with safety. Or like I said, a homeless person starving, wondering where their next meal's coming from, they're not able to fulfill their potential because that's where everything's focused. All right, and that's section 2. See you guys later. Bye.